Okay. All right. Although, I don't know that sound is working because I didn't hear recording in progress. Thank you, Robin. I'm glad you're here. I appreciate that very much. What would I do without you? Yeah. All right. All right. That was Miss Niederman. She was there. All right. So the next two sessions, my friends, are all about the ways in which we Jews are connected to the fight for justice, the fight for justice in all its forms. And I thought it was apt that today we talk about how Passover music specifically fuels that fight for justice, how it sparks us forward some of our traditional pieces and how those connect to themes of justice. And that way we can root our Seders in the next couple of days in these ideas of justice and reform and what we look like. Then next session, we'll talk about all the ways in which Jews have taken up that cause, thought about freedom through that narrative of the Passover Seder and moving forward for their civil rights movement and for actually well before that in the suffragist movements and in the workmen's circle and all throughout time and memoriam, Jews have taken up the call for justice. So we'll root today's in Passover since it's awfully timely. And then next class, we'll go into a number of different historical moments in time in which music has become the voice of a movement and specifically Jews leading that cause. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm going to ask a question. Think about it for a moment, and then you can call out your answers. When you think about music of your Passover Seder, what's the first song that comes to mind, and what feeling does it bring up for you? Uh-huh, uh-huh. Let my people go. What else? Anything? Parodies, yeah. What sort of feelings do these songs bring to mind? Joy. Awesome. Yeah, the joy of the Seder, right? The music is what brings back that tangible memory, right? The joy of the Seder, the experiences of when we were children, the connection comes oftentimes from the music. But I want us to remember, of course, that the Seder itself isn't just the meal, although we all look forward to it. It's this master class in how to be empathetic. We literally are commanded to see ourselves as we personally came out from Egypt. This is not someone else. This is not, well, they were slaves and now we're free. It's we were slaves and now we are free. And that experience of remembering slavery is the foundation for the commitment that we make in every single generation for justice. Justice for all is not just a cause that's, on a wall somewhere. It's literally our Jewish cause. So we're going to talk first, exactly like Nancy said. The song Avadim Hayinu, Avadim Hayinu lefaro b'mitzrayim atab menei chorin. So we say we were slaves in Egypt and Pharaoh, but now we are free. This is the start of the Magi. This is the start of when we're telling the Passover story. Comes right after Manishtana Halaila Hazeh, our four questions, right? This is the beginning of the answer. Why is this night so different? Because we were slaves and now we are free. It reminds us of our past oppression and it inspires a level of gratitude. And everybody has to tell the story. No one is exempt from experiencing the story. And when you retell the story, you get praise, you get tasty treats, you get the afikomen, you get fun songs, you get the experience, you get the praise because you are retelling the story in every generation. But it shows that without God's help, we would still be there. And it is the moral anchor of the entire Haggadah. So when you hear the song tomorrow or the next night, if you're coming to our second night Seder, think about it in that context. This is the answer. This is the beginning. This is the moral anchor. So we're going to listen to two versions of Avadim Hayinu. First, we're going to listen to the very traditional version. Nancy started singing it, of course. It's the one you'll hear at most Seders, absolutely. And you're welcome to sing along with it, absolutely. And I want you to think, when singing it or hearing it, how might the act of this communal singing contribute to feelings of resistance, resilience, hope, and shared identity? Thinking about the pacing, thinking about the way it's portrayed. And then we're going to hear the Maccabees melody. They just released this year a new version of Avadim Hayinu called Break Free. And so we're going to listen to their version. And I want you to think, how does that contemporary version add extra meaning to those themes of hope and resilience? So first, the original. Hopefully it'll play. Robin? Try now. Ah, there we go. You know this one. I'm gonna sing it. Vadim hayinu hayinu, feels like a literally it feels like a song you would sing on a chain gang. So that is traditional. And I noticed, some it's toe tapping, right? And it gets into a melody that's easy to sing and it's easy to connect to. Here's our new version. We built the walls ourselves, brick by brick. With every word we swap, every... Something similar. The actual translation is simpler than that. It's we were slaves in Egypt and now we are free. So, but they have what the Maccabees do is put it into first person rather than we, right? So we're looking at the same concept, but personalizing it, right? So we were slaves is that communal piece, but I have to break free, right? So it's a juxtaposition in style and choice.
Also, the original, you're thinking of the past. I mean, in the original, you're thinking, oh, yes, we were in Egypt, we were slaves. But in the Maccabees, you're thinking today, what is enslaving me right now that I need to break free?
Absolutely.
Putting it in the present.
Yeah. Be that way. See what I can do. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I found the Maccabees version to be something that, sure, I hear it in concert, but I didn't find it particularly meaningful. And you can't do it in a group. And you can't sing it all together. It's a performance, but it's not a prayer. It's not a custom.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I love the Maccabees, but this one, it was almost a psychological thing where what's not related to Egypt, not related to the Jewish people, although there was Hebrew word, how do I break free? And that could be psychological things that I have going in my life that's stopping me from being free.
Interesting. Lulu's got a point.
But then again, you're busy working on two different types of demographics. Where the first one is more your traditional, and if the music goes along very well with traditional instruments, while you have more contemporary, where I hate to say it, a lot of the kids don't really think of community until they get older. Those are the demographics we're really trying to reach. And the use of the boom beat to it makes it more, I mean, it still gives it more emphasis. Well, you know, the same thing. Yeah. With the 1-2 count, but I agree, they did more to me with contemporary, a little bit more heavy rhythms than they did with the other.
Howard's got something over there. We can run it over to him.
Well, if you didn't tell me about this, I would never connect them both with Passover. The Maccabee one goes to the I me generation. If you're going to use that to teach that to young children, how that doesn't, to me, teach the old story. So I don't know how you use that. But anyway, that's, if you're trying to interest the younger generation into something Jewish, it has that aspect to it. Sound you hear when you go into
Okay, pass that way and then Sean, if you want to.
As someone who's one of the younger generation.
Reasonable.
I think that the Maccabees, I feel like I noticed that there's a lot of like from a psychological, like from a personalizing, like, if it was just about one person, it's like, you like if it's just about because it feels too generalized. And like the thing is that it can, having a voice and breaking free in the context of that song, it could be about anything is holding you back. There's a lack of grounding in like the historical or cultural context because it could might as well be like a song that could be just about, another pop song.
Yeah. Has that feel, absolutely. Sean? Okay.
trying to be articulate. It's cold medication running through me right now. I don't love the Maccabees, and I think the song in particular is pablum and rather less, to be honest. I think they would have been better served to make a parody from a Leibniz song, talk freedom, right? They're not, I think everyone is right to sort of see the, I'll say it, shallowness of the sentiment. Because even when we're talking about like inner demons and psychological trauma and overcoming those things that hold us back, they're not really getting at that either. They're using sort of standard new agey self-help, new thought type of jargon. And that does, it's not that that speaks to younger people, although everyone is correct to say that there's a shallowness, and it's not that young people are shallow, it's that it speaks to the lowest common denominator of people in general, and specifically within the Jewish community. And it's not about the Jewish community itself, but it's just about like sort of people in general who aren't interested in thinking about the depth of this in the enormity of this narrative, right? And what it means for justice, what it means on a personal level and on a cultural and social level.
To add, I think like adding, I know I'm beating on a dead horse, but like, the Maccabees. I think one of the problems with the song compared to the traditional prayer chant is that it does not really, yes, you know, there's inner demons and psychological trauma, but it doesn't really just like leave it like that. It does not address things like intergenerational trauma or like trauma from like, you know, communities going through, well, you know, the show, like things like the Shoah and things like that. Like very traumatic things as a community.
Absolutely. You connect very well to some of what we'll hear a little later in terms of the story.
And I think that's an excellent point, and I want to sort of piggyback on that. As an educator of Jewish youth, I would never use this particular song to drive home the emotional power of the Exodus narrative. There's a reason why Avadim Hayinu is timeless, and it's in its simplicity, right? The Maccabee song is needlessly, it's not complex, it's superficial, but it's not, but it's meaningless in its superfluousness. Avadim Hayinu isn't, it's deep in its simplicity.
Yeah, we want production versus communal connection, right? That's the difference there. I'll say I previewed this lesson with a group of Heritage Point seniors yesterday, and across the board, same conversation. It's fascinating how intergenerationally we can all see the difference between the deeper meaning of our actual liturgy versus the way that pop groups or a cappella groups or people, they try to connect, but it doesn't necessarily ring true. It has there's a tendency to ring false because there's no rich history behind it, which makes it challenging when it comes to a Seder, right? Like, how do you infuse it with joy and energy and interest? Those things take time, but the most singable melodies are the ones that will carry through the generations. Everyone knows the frog song. Everyone knows Avadim Hayinu. Everyone knows certain things that have come down through the generations, right? So thank you all for that. It's really interesting to hear that it is very common, that you all agree, boy, that is just not great. It's not great. Let's see if it'll move. Oh, no. There we go. So now we get into the next piece that all of you mentioned, or many of you mentioned. Let my people go, right? Go down, Moses. This particular piece is fascinating in its parallels to different communities and the ways in which other communities have taken our liturgy and internalized the narrative and used it to express their own needs, desires, pains, concerns. It is a timeless narrative. And the ways in which that comes through in song is particularly fascinating. So let's talk about Go Down Moses, the song, or Let My People Go. It is an African-American spiritual created during the slavery era, and it was often sung in secret. In fact, there were many plantations in which it was technically banned. Whenever it was sung, problems happened, right? So it was done very quietly or in secret. It uses the Exodus story. God commands Moses to free the Israelites from Egypt, and it served as a coded message of hope and resistance. It is the story of liberation mirrored in the slave's own longing for freedom. Harriet Tubman herself was often called the Moses of her people, or Mama Moses. And she used it as a signal song along the Underground Railroad. It was quietly sung. And so this music provided spiritual comfort and a way to keep a tiny bit of communal identity while facing terrible oppression. Yes.
Just to throw in also, one of the really fascinating things is you mentioned it also, that it was banned from being sung. Because there was actually even a Bible, a copy of the Bible, but the slave Bible, which actually had deleted all mentions in Exodus in regards to slavery and the actual liberation from slavery, so as not to give the slaves ideas.
So as not to incite a riot, right. You know, so as not to say, this is your holy book too, WTF, yeah. You know, that what is going on here? What is actually happening? So as we listen, which we're going to listen to a couple of different versions of Go Down Moses. I hope I put both clips. I may have to look for one. I want you to think about those lyrics and how it adopts that Passover narrative. Let my people go. But it voices their yearning for liberation and justice. We then have taken it back to our Passover Seders as a part of our narrative and a part of our tradition. But in so doing, it's very important that we recognize its roots. To just sing Go Down Moses as a part of your Passover Seder, some might say is actually appropriation, despite the fact that it's our narrative as well, right? There has to be a gentle balance in the way we choose to bring music to our celebrations. It needs to be intentional. It needs to be thoughtful. And sometimes conversations have to be had in advance. After a while, it then becomes your family song or a part of your family Seder. But if you didn't initially have these conversations, then your children and your children's children and so on and so forth are not going to understand why it's being sung, where it came from, and the meaning is lost. So think about sort of this narrative of the song as a circular cycle. There's slavery, but there's hope, and there's moral and divine intervention, and then there's a journey towards freedom. So this is a really fascinating version of Go Down Moses. It comes from the movie Sullivan's Travels. And this is a guy who is traveling the United States. Eventually, he ends up on a chain gang. And they are invited to come to a tiny church in the middle of wherever they are. And this incredible man, Jess Lee Brooks, is there, and he plays the preacher. And lo and behold, he chooses Go Down Moses as the song of choice before their special movie presentation.
Those three people so that I'm going to by action, not by the look that we make speed up with control from I do. For we is all equally in the sight of God. And
Yeah. So he's incredibly talented for sure. And a truly meaningful expression. Oops, we'll go backwards. Um, how do you feel after watching that?
Well, first of all, it's stunning. I mean, it's heavy on my heart. Women, are there no women? No children in the chain?
In a chain gang, and usually it was one sex.
And it was always the men, and they were usually the prisoners. Ones in the prisons.
And the movie depicted in 1941. This is before civil rights or anything. If it was in the South, it looked like the South.
Yeah, they're in the middle of the South here. I want to say Mississippi, but I'm not 100% on that. That's true. This particular representation in the 40s, was heavily focused on men and specifically white men. It's interesting, right? In this, there's a juxtaposition and it's backwards from even what someone in the 40s might even think about in terms of who would be in chains and who would be singing about freedom, right? So I love that clip for that reason. This sort of flipping on its head is revolutionary in its idea there.
Also reserving the first rows for their guests.
Yeah, the way he said, these are our guests. I'm reserving these rows for them, absolutely.
The clip was very haunting. Like
Yes.
it felt like, I mean, you know, in that you kind of, it just like, you know, when I learned about like the historical and cultural context as well as the where the movie like takes place, it is very bold for the movie director to pull this off. And I mean, I'm pretty sure there were people, like people who South were pretty angry about that.
Yes, they were.
I'm sure they were. I didn't do a lot of research into the reception for this movie, but I'm sure if we were to Google it and find more information specifically about it, of course, we're literally depicting them mixed. First of all, it's a mixed multitude, which in and of itself is scandalous, right? Second of all, who's free and who's enslaved in this situation? Scandalous in and of itself. The location, scandalous in and of itself, right? There's a lot going on in that narrative. And there's a lot of social commentary happening in a very short amount of time. It's visual, it's tangible, and it's audio, it's sonic.
Yeah,
You know?
hearing the song and hearing the scraping of feet on the chain.
You literally hear the chains, you hear the scraping, you see the man with the gun. You know, you don't see his face. You see the shadow of the man with the gun. And all of this is happening in the 40s, in which there's plenty of upheaval to be had, both when it comes to African Americans and whites, when it comes to what's happening overseas during this time. There's a lot of turmoil, and you see it. You see it in this clip, and you hear it. You hear the rhythm of the chains too. Yeah.
Takes place at night.
And the scenes at night, there's dark. Yeah, it's secret. And which is again evocative of the actual song itself. When are you able to worship together like that? When are you able to talk about freedom at night? Away from the rest of the crowds, away from public. Yes, Howard.
What studio produced it?
Great question.
Sullivan's Travels, I believe it was either Universal or MGM. I'll look that up.
Yeah, you give us some background on it, because for me, I'm looking at the visual and the sonic and the way it hears, and I didn't do a lot of deep dive into it because I was just thinking about the way it always hits me when I see that clip, the viscerality of it. Now, while I was looking that up, I'm going to give you a complete contrast to this. Louis Armstrong. So Louis does it. And I thought I had the clip ready, but I'm just going to pull him up because life happens. When you listen to this one, I want you to think about the differences. See, I was literally listening to it earlier and I just didn't grab the clip. Tell me what you think. Ugh, go away. Oh, so cute. Thank you, Keegan. You're so cute. So it starts. Let me see. Go away. No, thank you. Ah, what do you think? What makes it different? How did this one hit you? How does it feel?
Obviously, a striking difference in the two. The jazz, brings a certain feeling to you, and I felt hope in that. Where in the first one, there was no hope. It was these people that chain gang, Black folks, church, had no hope. Where in this one, it was, no, let my people go, and we're gonna sing and play music, just tell you to let my people go.
Pass it off.
It's, the whole song is impactful. I mean, I've heard this version, I've heard Louis' version, there was a version by Paul Robeson. That was made many years ago, which is, I mean, if you think this guy has a deep voice, Paul Robeson.
Yes.
Basically, he scrapes the ground.
Yeah.
But, what's really interesting is, again, this one, while the Louis Armstrong version, while it sounds very studio produced and commercialized, it's still, it still has the impact because of the voices. And I'm especially get a kick out of it because, the fact that a lot of people don't know that Louis Armstrong was raised by a Jewish immigrant family when he was 7 years old. They took care of him. And if you look at most pictures of him on Google or anything like that, he's wearing a Star of David for the rest of his life to honor that couple. So he kind of has that perspective on both sides as well.
Love that. Other ideas?
It was but I definitely got distracted and just ended up getting food. The Sullivan travel clip, I felt like I was paying attention, was on the edge of my seat. I just wanted to know what happened next. I mean, granted, maybe the difference is there was no music video for Louis Armstrong song version.
Pastor Sean? Oh, how are you going? Go ahead.
I was closer.
You were closer, yes.
Well, this, to me, aside from being a really great production, shows the value of celebrity. He gets away with it. It may even have made it himself, because it may not have been, even though he's a black man, it still might have made it. But the point was, yeah, there's a definite message there. Depends who's listening.
Looking at the version of any reception for like Sullivan's Travels, and I didn't find anything relating to like how white audiences viewed it. But I was interested to see that the movie overall is a comedy. And this is one of the few serious scenes in the movie, and the director is actually known for his pretty racist depictions of African Americans.
Wow.
In most of his movies, but the NAACP actually praised the movie, and for that scene in particular, for showing dignity of African Americans. That was rare.
Thank you.
Just to throw out also,
Pass it on.
Scenes like that, also, what it tended to happen is you saw the movie in its entirety in the North. In some movie theaters, not all of them, in the South, whenever there was a scene that featured a predominantly Black performer like Louis Armstrong, the Nicholas brothers, or any of these other people, what they did was edit those things out before they hit the theater. And it was interesting, you also brought up the fact that it was a comedy. the whole idea of this was that the protagonist in the movie is a movie director who directs comedies, who decided what he wants to do is he wants to make a dramatic, impactful, socially impactful film. And so what he does, he pretends he's a homeless person, or back then what they call a hobo, and travel the country into different parts of the country to experience what real life is. And that happened to be one of the stops.
Fascinating. Okay, you got that? Cool.
Yeah, one of the reasons I asked the question on the first one, what was the studio that produced the movie?
Paramount,
And Paramount was kind of Jewish owned, wasn't it?
absolutely.
Okay. There, I think, you know, in the theme of today, and I don't know what studio produced in the movie industry, the management from the high side is very much Jewish. And when you saw things like this, they would take a chance. They would never take a chance.
So to clarify, Howard, Sullivan's Travels was produced by Paramount and is a comedy. So all three are true. And yet this little piece was not. Although I guess if you're looking at it through the lens of someone in 1941, they might have laughed at it. Oh, this is so silly. This would never happen. This is, you know, liberties being taken, right? So you could, if he was a racist director, you might have just gotten a kick out of that too. But it's a risk. It's a risk to show that kind of imagery, period. Regardless of how they try and sell it. Absolutely. So we're going to move forward in time. Well, not really. We're going to stay right in the 40s. And it's such a great time for the Jews. We just love the 40s. It's fantastic. I don't know if there's many times that are great for the Jews, honestly. We see another fight happening in another part of the world around the same time. And this particular song, which we're going to study a little bit more, Zotnik, I will never say, is also called the Partisan's Hymn, or the Partisan Song. And it's got a fascinating story. It was written in the Vilna Ghetto in 1943, and it became an anthem of the Jewish partisans who were fighting back. And what happened with this writer of this piece was that he heard what was happening in Warsaw. And if you're not familiar, the Warsaw Ghetto uprising happened on the first night of Passover. The rabbi gathered them in, sat them down for the Seder. And at the end, he said, "This is a good day to die. We are going to fight for our freedom." And that action spread, that sound, that feeling of defiance spread during this time of Passover. And so the writer who was in the Vilna Ghetto was inspired and wrote this song, the Partisan's Hymn. And as you hear this version, there are so many, by the way, incredible versions of the Partisan's Hymn. I wouldn't doubt there's a Beth David choir version somewhere in video form, or, you know. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I would have cried way more than no. We're not going to do that one. No, thank you. Oy vey. I can only dive in so much to that. That's a wonderful congregant that I grew up with and passed on at Beth David. Yeah, they're fantastic. Remember last week when we listened to Shir Chadash? It comes from templeofdavid.org, and there's a whole, I mean, there's a choir section on it, and you can click so many great videos. In this one, Theo Bacella is singing it. He hushes the crowd. It's giant. He's singing this at the Festival of Jewish Culture in the 80s. And I think it's the 80s or early 90s. And the entire crowd goes silent. They're in Krakow. And he points as he's talking to the various places where there used to be Jews, where there used to be a large population that had been decimated during this time frame. And so as we listen, I want you to hear the words, and then I'll play a version that has the lyrics underneath it, but he translates it. The song is not a song of despair. And one thing, if you can take one thing away from this whole conversation, is that we Jews do not dwell in our despair. We acknowledge the pain and the hardship. We acknowledge the middle place, the narrow place, but then we go forward out of it. So we recognize that no matter where we are, if we're stuck in that narrow place, and the Seder guides us this way, eventually we're in freedom next year in Jerusalem. So as we listen, think about the strength it must have taken and the hope that they must have been holding on to, despite the terrible circumstances they were in.
Listen to the stillness. This is the stillness of the voices that were taken away from us. People who lived here and there and 2 streets away, multi-bildig. Voices that were taken from us. We are the voices that are left. We must be their voice carrying their song. And so we will do the hymn of the survivors, of those who fought and those who survived. Never say that you've walked the final way, though leaden skies obscure the light of day. The hour we longed for will certainly appear, and our steps will proclaim we are still here. Zoek niet hemel als du gehst den letzten Weg. Und schienen bleiben, verstellt neue Welt. Doch unser heut Gedenken schon. Wenn abweicht von unser Gott im seinen Tod. Wenn doch unser heut Gedenken schon. Wenn abweicht von unser Gott im seinen Tod. Und den Augen nach uns weiß, nach uns was gebaut unser Blut, was Gott unser Blut, von jedem Spitz, was in gebaut unser Blut, trotzdem Gott unser Blut, das Ding geschrieben ist, in Blut und nicht in Brei, sind wir ein Lindo von das hat und zwischen Farben sind gesungen mit Tages Leben. Das hat zwischen Farben sind gesungen mit Tages in die Hände. Das war nicht kein Urlaub, du gehst den letzten Weg. Ein paar Stunden bleiben, ein paar Stellen neue Tage. Noch unser neues Gedenken schon.
Thoughts?
Perfectly defiant.
Hmm.
That came across very strongly. The one thing that disturbed me was the scenes of the people. People were smiling as if they didn't understand what it was about.
Hmm.
I don't know what was going on there. I mean, the whole thing, I'm sure, is a festive event, but for that particular thing, I can't imagine ever smiling about it.
Hmm.
I was thinking the same thing, and I don't know if it was what I received or I was hoping that what they were doing was they were expressing some pride. That's what I was hoping,
Hmm.
you know, so you never know, I guess.
Some of them they look like native soldiers who were just for a concert, you know, one guy had no shirt on and it was like, he's with his girlfriend, it's like, this is nice, but I mean, theater, Vickle is very strong presence.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he commands, people to watch him and to, you know, he just
Literally.
really. So even if they didn't understand, they knew that there was a strong song,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm. Hmm. We pass it down.
I just have a quickie. Was that all German language?
Yiddish.
Yiddish.
They said it sounded more Yiddish to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not German. It's
That's
Yiddish.
interesting.
Like, of the video was where, like, not just the crowd, you know, some of them smiling, kind of disturbing, but also like seeing at least one of the shots, you know, written in the Hebrew script that remind, you know, that should remind people there was a Jewish, like, there was a Jewish community, maybe there still is, but it's not like what it used to be in terms of size.
Mhm.
Like, it's like a stark reminder, it's like staring at the face, it's like,
Mhm.
you know. You know.
Yeah.
Like, oh. This is what they have done to us.
We'll pass it back to her.
I don't know if that's they had it in a lot of the.
Yeah, I think
There is some.
there's an attempt at reconciliation for sure. Honestly, the way that Germany deals with the pains and the choices that were made by their government during this time frame is admirable and laudable in comparison, especially to the way that other nations either choose to acknowledge or not what happened.
Where was that concert?
Crap.
So maybe they just didn't speak Yiddish.
Yeah, I don't think they knew what it was. They also might not have spoken English, right? So Theodor Vickel explains it in English and then sings it in Yiddish, but it's a klezmer festival and a festival of Jewish heritage. And so the understanding is there. But if you just listen to the music, does it sound painful? Does it? It depends, right? It depends on your understanding of the context, right? Same with Avadu Haidu, right? We were slaves, but now we're free.
Painful
Right?
yet hopeful.
Painful yet hopeful. And you've got that march to it in a similar way. Nodding always back to the Seder.
Wanted to say two things. One, talking about the introduction. singer Daniel Kahn's introduction to the song Borscht. When he was saying, we were doing a Yiddish translation of it, but they were in some little pig farmer town in Poland, and he's like, nobody speaks Yiddish there. Well, they used to, but not anymore. But then the next thing I was also thinking about was about Germany versus other countries. I know in Poland, it is currently a crime to state that Poland had any complicity in the Holocaust. So,
Yeah, the Holocaust denial is real.
Back, what the previous speaker said, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
That's John.
John, to piggyback what John has said previously, I can think of one country, that also that has gotten into hot water, which is neighbor for Japan. Even though Japan did not directly, it was involved in the Holocaust, they were allies with Germany, so they would have to be someone, and they also committed war crimes on their own. And unlike Germany, it's complicated, like, it's sometimes like, there are like even like people like far right nationalists in Japan that would just deny. Like textbooks have been rewritten and yeah, like stuff.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. There's definitely a trend moving towards the right across the world. And, the rise of anti-Semitism is real. The rise of denial of Jewish anything is real. Peoplehood, Jewish peoplehood, the right to exist. Whether or not it's the right to have a state is its own conversation. But even the right to exist as a people is more in jeopardy now than it ever was. Did you want to know?
oh, no.
Okay. Speaking of the right to exist and the right to have a homeland, we're going to transition, but it's a small transition because it goes into what was happening to the Jews who were trying to escape the pains and horrors of the Holocaust. There was a British mandate in Palestine at the time, and there was a struggle to find ways to save Jewish refugees. And there is a movement called Aliyah Bet that happens during this time. It is a clandestine, illegal immigration of Jews to what was then called Palestine. And it was the code name, Aliyah Bet, for this sneaking in, this illegal immigration. And it was organized by the Haganah, which was some of the early hardcore Israeli fighters. And it focused on rescuing European and Jewish refugees. So what we're going to do is learn a little bit about that situation, learn a little bit about what was going on there. And then we're going to listen to some music that was connected to the journeys that these people were making. And we'll highlight a really interesting singer who they called the Queen of Israel, Queen of Jewish music, Queen of Hebrew music, best friends with with Sammy Davis Jr. and a whole bunch of others, to kind of understand what was going on during this time frame.
2,000 years, the Jewish people, scattered and dispersed throughout the four corners of the globe, never gave up on the improbable dream of returning home to Israel. Jews everywhere pray to the Lord, may our eyes see you return to Zion with mercy. The impossible suddenly appeared within reach when the mighty British Empire issued the Balfour Declaration in 1917. recognizing the Jewish people's right to their historic and spiritual homeland. But as the dark clouds gathered over Europe, the door to the land of Israel was not yet open. Under Arab League pressure, the British ruthlessly restricted Jewish immigration. As the world looked on, Karen Hayesod, alongside Jews already in the land of Israel, banded together and took on the challenge. They launched a clandestine naval operation, codenamed Aliyah Bet, to save their brethren from the clutches of Nazi Germany and bring them to Israel. These brave souls defied the British authorities. Makeshift, rickety boats set sail from ports across Europe, transporting a wretched human cargo of men, women, and children, desperately seeking refuge. But the might of His Majesty's Navy stood in their way. Time and again, those who had escaped the gas chambers gazed longingly at Israel's coast, the land of freedom in their midst, only to be defied by the British and turned back to Europe. Fruma Galant was just such a little girl when she traveled to Israel on the SS Exodus during the Haftalah. Upon its arrival to the port of Haifa, the ship was deported back to Europe, thus making it a symbol of the many hardships Jews had to face during the time of Aliyah, immigrating to their historical homeland.
ראינו את אוניות הבריטים, המשחטות שלהם מסביב כמו דגי טרף כל הזמן, כמו שאנחנו נסענו הם נסעו. ואז הגיע היום, ראינו שהאוניות מתחילות להתקרב אלינו, וראינו את חיפה את העבודות. וכולם התחילו לשמוח מאוד שרים מורות. אבל אני מבינה שהיו אנשים שהבינו שמתחיל קרב. הם התחילו לשחק כדורגל אנגלים עם האונייה. אחד נתן חיפה ימינה, השני שמאלה, והאונייה התחילה להתפרק כמו לאכול. בחיפה הורידו את האנשים, עשו עליהם פליט עם כל הכעס שהיה להם, והביאו אותנו לאוניות, לשלוש אוניות. זו הייתה אוניית אסירים, הם זרקו את כל התלמידים, אנשים נשארו כמו שעלו, בלי בגדים, בלי שום כלום.
Undeterred, the overcrowded, unseaworthy vessels of Aliyah Bet continued to challenge the blockade. Young Jewish fighters, aided by their non-Jewish sailors, succeeded in bringing more than 70,000 Jews home to the land of their forefathers in more than 100 vessels.
We came to the port of Haifa on the boat called Argentina. One of the boats of Argentina were being caught maybe an hour or half an hour earlier, and they were singing all of a sudden Hatikwa. And we also started to sing Hatikwa. It was a very emotional something that one does never forget.
Those who made it ashore were swiftly smuggled into the future Jewish state by daring activists from Karen Hayesod and elsewhere. Evading capture, the new arrivals were taken to kibbutzim and other new communities to live as free Jews in their own land, fulfilling the dreams of countless generations before them.
זה המקום היחיד שאתה יודע שאתה בארץ שלך, על הקרקע שלך, כמו כל עם נורמלי אחר.
So you'll notice, not only were some of the boats called the Exodus or Argentina or et cetera, there's some very clear parallels. We literally had our own Exodus story that lived out in real time with real parallels. So in the middle of this, the gentleman who survived and got off the boat he said they heard Hatikva and they sang it, and it was a big moment for him, right? So, in what ways might music have offered that comfort or preserved that hope or strengthened communal identity for all of these refugees who literally had just escaped the horrors of what was happening in Europe? They didn't know if they'd be able to make it and get smuggled in. They didn't know what was going to happen next. But how might music have helped them through that? Thoughts?
Music has an impact on people that makes them remember places, people, things, and a song like Hatikva, I mean, literally meaning hope. A song like that, when you basically got very little left, these little things like this, just a song, just this, hearing people doing this in unison, something that they weren't able to do from wherever they left. It gives you nothing but some type of hope that this is really happening.
Absolutely. So, we literally see a physical exodus, a tangible experience that then is tattooed upon our hearts, right? It lives there forever. And it is recent memory. The 40s is not so long ago. I wanted to highlight a very famous vocalist who maybe has lost her knowledge base, but she was huge from the 40s through the 70s, give or take. Her name is Shoshana Damari, and she began singing Ha'apala songs, which are the songs of Aliyah. Ha'apala songs become the songs of the kibbutz, become the songs of the initial Israeli dancers, Mayim and Hatikva, and all of these songs that we now, when we hear them, we go, oh, there's a dance to that, or oh, that reminds me of my trip to Israel when I was, 18 or whatever it is. Those old songs, well, they were made famous during this Ha'apala time frame. And Shoshana Damari, in 1948, she actually traveled to British detention camps throughout Cyprus and sang Hebrew songs to them. She stood outside their tents. She stood next to their huts. She gave hugs. She checked. It was like the USO. But that wasn't a thing. Israel didn't have that yet. But she went out there and she took the time to connect with all of these refugees, some of whom were sent away, like the Exodus, right? They were taken in British prisoner vehicles to places like Cyprus for detention and for processing. Some of them were sent back to Europe, and that didn't go well. Some of the boats were stopped at ports and then brought into international waters, and then it didn't go well for them. There's a story of the Sturma, unfortunately, is a big boat of refugees who were stopped at Istanbul, and Turkey refused to let them in, and eventually they moved them out into international waters, and Russia torpedoed them, and so all of them passed away. There was only one survivor. So this was a very perilous time. Even after the war, we Jews faced a lot. So she went, she came, and she sang. And so there's this beautiful song called Kalaniot, which is, the Kalanit is I don't know if it's the national flower of Israel, but it is a sign of hope. It's a red poppy. There's white poppies as well. They call them anemones also. And this song became a rallying cry for those that wanted to make it back to Israel. And her songs became a symbol of hope She then became what is known as the Queen of Hebrew music. She traveled to America. She traveled all across the world, sacrificing, unfortunately, her family life, much like a lot of starlets had to do back in the day. But she embraced the role as a bringer of hope and change through music. So we're going to listen to a clip of hers. I chose not a live version so that you could hear it. There is one recorded from early, I think 1950 as well, but this is her at one of the camps. So when she visited, her music offered this feeling of hope and a reminder of what they were searching for and praying for. So I am most interested in how you think the experience of the Jews in Aliyah Bet echo the Passover story of leaving oppression. But also, if you have any thoughts about that music and how it helps connect to the story.
Next year in Jerusalem. This is their actual experiencing that. And again, it just like you said, it's the running lines. It's an exodus from one place of oppression to a place that they're going to call home.
God willing, right? So our last little set of vignettes before we end with Dayenu, because you got to end with Dayenu. That's just the best. The Refuse Next movement. How many of you remember, were around, were paying attention in the 70s and 80s during this time frame? Any thoughts? You were in Israel.
I was on a.
Share your story.
Okay. So in 1973, my dad took his second sabbatical. We spent 6 months in Jerusalem. And we flew into Europe and we bought a car in Switzerland and drove down the beach. We took a ship in January.
Oh my
And
goodness.
everybody, the ship was filled with Jews from Cuba.
Oh, wow.
all
Yeah.
faiths.
Mhm,
And everybody was getting seasick. It was not a cruise.
mhm.
And I remember, being warned, whatever. So when we got to Israel, after 3 weeks of public school, my parents were pulled to the principal's office and explained, your children know nothing of Hebrew. They need to go to full time. I mean, I learned how to spell my name and I was elected class president, but I had no idea what was going on. And so my sister and I were bused to the Ulpan outside of Jerusalem. Every day a bus picked us up. We were near the university where my dad was working as a professor. So, but in the Ulpan came a bunch of Jews from Russia.
Mm.
And that's where I met Avi, who I just heard from today. I was 12 years old and he was wishing me happy Pesach. He's in Paris now. He had traveled from Morocco after his mother had drowned in the ocean. His father had immigrated, so that in the Ulpan were a bunch of people living there. They were housed in apartments. And my sister and I, we just marveled because they had bakeries. And so every morning we would arrive on our bus and we would get fresh baguettes from the bakery and go to class. And my Moroccan teacher spoke not a word of English. So it was either French or Hebrew. And that's why I picked up the Sephardic accent. And then Avi, of course, coached us. And then we all wanted to learn French because he was very cute at the time. But no, there were a lot of Russians. And I remember it was a singing teacher. And she came and I thought I was getting in trouble again, but I was pulled out of class to go join the singing group. And we did songs like Shalom Krabas, on Israel High. And these were really big. The Sena Sena. I'm trying to remember, the songs I learned there were the songs I brought back in memory and in camps. They were still being sung.
Oh, it's so true. And Am Yisrael High, great bringing up. That became, that was one of the rallying cries. Am Yisrael High, that song carried forward. And in America, the refuseniks, the call to support them and get them to Israel or get them to America, get them away from what was happening. Am Yisrael Chai was a really popular piece when it came to that. There's a really fascinating song. So Natan Sharansky, at the time Anatoly, he is arrested for treason against the Soviet Union during this time frame. And Cantor Rabbi Solomon hears about it. And he decides he's just inspired and he writes a song in one day. And he brings it to his band Safam. And the next day, they perform it at Rutgers University. And from there, it becomes a huge rallying cry, along with Am Yisrael Chai, to help Jews connect in these large rallies, like the Greater New York Conference on Soviet Jewry, hundreds of thousands of people gathering to support the cause of bringing these refuseniks, these Jews who were not allowed under Soviet Union rules to practice their Judaism, to a place where they could. So we'll listen to a little bit of Robbie's song, and then we'll talk.
They call me unfolded prison by night. My little window looks out on the Russian sky. Still here, crimes they have not named. But all my people know God will be afraid. See my accuser standing in the hall. He points his finger.
That's a 6 minute song. We don't have to listen to the whole song. However, it is incredibly meaningful. They sang that every single day at every single rally that they did until Natan Sharansky was emigrated back to Israel. And at each of these rallies, they called out the names of those Jews who were in custody in the Soviet Union and stuck as hostages. To me, that reminds me, I don't know if any of you heard when, in October 7th, and we had all the hostages. The song, the anthem that was sung, bring them home, right, in Hebrew, Habaita, that was sung every day in the square until everyone came home. So we as Jews use our voices and lift it up until we are heard. Until those who are enslaved are free, we do not feel free ourselves. And that was huge when it came to this movement. So as you think about it, think about the ideas of having to leave your homeland again. Here we are, another exodus. We Jews are literally living the exodus over and over and over. And that music, our liturgy carries us through all of it. I want to highlight this fascinatingly. Even George W. Bush gets in on the action and pulls from our scripture. He stands there and yells at Mr. Gorbachev. And listen to what he says. Oh, sorry, yeah, HW. I don't know why I put GW. That's HW, obviously. So those are some of the
Vice President of the United States stand up and say, Mr. Gorbachev, let these people go. What a huge moment in the history of the American Jewish.
And now Mr. Gorbachev embarked on this policy of glasnost or openness, but openness begins at the borders. Let's see not 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 refuseniks released at a time, but tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, all those who want to go. And for those who want to stay, let's practice religion and freedom. Let's not hear any more claims about state security or about the United States organizing a brain drain. Mr. Gorbachev, let these people go.
Sorry. So Vice President Bush using that language to help support our cause. The same thing happens as we deal with COVID. What does it mean to be connected? Let my people go buy toilet paper. Let my people worship. Let my people be a part of the community despite the distance. We rallied and we made these Passover Zeders. There is this beauty in connecting even online. So we don't have the time to listen to it, but there's really cool. In 2020, there's something called the Saturday Night Seder. And it was a bunch of Broadway stars and stars of stage and screen. And they came together and they did all sorts of really cool vignettes of the Seder to help us all connect in a universal way, because music becomes that universal language. How do we connect when we're miserable and we're stuck at home? We kvetch together, we sing together. Now we end with Dayenu, because Dayenu, we've had enough of this day. I wish you a Chag Sameach. This is a very silly version of Dayenu. Sing along with it, enjoy it. Some of you may have seen it before. They sing it in like 6 or 7 different genres of music. So we will end with Dayenu. Yanu mi Mitzrayim Dayenu. Dayenu, 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 and they're so bored. So how do we connect to the next generation? Thanks, everyone. So thank you all for joining me on this journey. I hope that you now are able to take some of that knowledge back with you as you begin your Passover journey. And remember that music is really the thread that binds us together. And please enjoy your Passover music, and hope to see you a lot of you at second day. All right, take care. Have a good night.